Geoff MacKenzie, good to have you in the studio today.
Great to be here, sir.
We've known each other for a while, even predating our time in men's group.
That's correct.
And had a moment, I think it was actually a retreat a few years into my brotherhood journey where I was like, oh, I know that guy. Yeah, this guy's in this men's group thing too. You taught me yoga many moons ago.
2012 summer, I remember.
This little studio in Kitsilano called Babylon, right?
Babylon Yoga Shala, yep.
Yoga's been a huge part of your life.
Yes.
Can you tell me what first drew you there and why?
Yeah, well, first experience of yoga actually was, or like formally being taught the physical stuff and the breath stuff, was on a forest floor in Western France, 1996. Is that 30 years ago? Holy. Yeah, there was an Aussie pro surfer there who was coming to this forest campsite where we were all living out the back of our station wagons trying to surf and live on the cheap for the season. And he sat a few of us down one day and showed us what he was learning in Hawaii when he went there every winter. And I loved it. It was great. I could totally relate to it I just loved how he taught breathing. And I've always been, I guess, a bit of a athlete guy growing up, through swimming and playing rugby and rowing and other stuff like that. And yeah, I connected with it right away.
When you grew up in England, correct?
That's right, yeah.
Was there any yoga in England at all? Was the concept even there before you had? No? Okay.
I'm trying to think, I think this sounds a bit weird, but probably the first time it might have come on my radar as a visual cultural thing would have been, there's a scene in A Clockwork Orange, if you've ever seen that movie, where there's some yoga going on and then other stuff happens. But kind of consciously, no, not really. It wasn't until, probably around that time that it really.
So your first attraction was this guy teaching you on a forest floor in France. And you said you were living out of a van at the time. Mm-hmm. What were you doing living out of a van?
I was taking the opportunity of having, it was the first, so 1997, I would have been, 22? It was my first opportunity since leaving high school where I wasn't working all summer. Mm-hmm. I kind of set up my seasonal work life to where I actually had the summer off. And a lot of friends I'd met on my travels up till then through Europe, snowboarding, would all, spend the summer living out of their vehicles at the beach in southwestern France, a place called Hossegor. It's kind of like the surfing epicenter of France. And so I had bought a Volkswagen station wagon that spring and driven it down to France, met up with some friends there. And decked out the back as a place to sleep, had a camp stove, and the goal was to just live outdoors all summer and try to learn how to surf.
Cool. And so your first exposure was, and attraction was just the physical movement and the breath. When did you then explore? You went to India at some point.
Oh gosh, it wasn't.
So it took a long time from there to kind of reconnect with it, or?
It didn't take that long, actually. I think within 2 years of having that first sort of informal class experience, a couple of books came across my radar, and I remember just sort of looking into those and trying a couple of the postures. But yeah, it wasn't until 1998 when I went to Bali for the second time that my girlfriend at the time found a yoga class and took us along. And that started about probably 2 to 3 years of intermittent dabbling with it, feeling very attracted to it and really enjoying it when I went, but my kind of consistency wasn't there. And also Bali back then wasn't like it
A
is. I
different
understand
place.
now. It's like, seems like you can't go down the street without tripping over a yoga teacher now in Bali. Whereas then there were 2 teachers
Wow.
that I knew of.
Yeah.
and they wouldn't necessarily stay around very long. Still in touch with my first teacher, actually, which is pretty cool. And seeing her actually inspired me to get into teaching down the line. But yeah, it took me 2-3 years of dabbling it wasn't until I came to Canada, actually, in 2003 and was exposed to this whole world of the yoga studio where they have
booming West Coast yogis.
It kind of was at the time where they had 6 yoga classes a day on the schedule, and you could buy a 3-month pass for what felt like not very much money.
Yeah.
And that really allowed me to pick it back up again pretty strongly. And by 2004, I took the studio's yoga teacher training program. And then kind of from there sort of picked the system that I really liked, which had sort of been bubbling under the whole time, just less formally. And 2 years later, I was in India.
Wow.
On my first trip.
What does yoga mean to you?
Whew. At the moment, it means nervous system regulation.
Yeah.
Practices that allow me to get quiet, which with my current lifestyle doesn't last very long. We can come back to that.
No, tell me more.
Well, being a new dad of almost 8 months, the days of, for a long time there, actually, I was pretty much in kind of semi-monk mode. Or at least very much so that my life was focused around my morning yoga practice and my morning teaching practice. And anything else in my life kind of really had to fit into that, whether that was relationships, leisure, travel, anything. It had to be willing to kind of fit into that. And
that was a very regimented structure because it started how early?
Oh, very much so. Yeah. So, I mean, in the yoga tradition and the way I was taught by my teachers in India, the ideal time to do contemplative quiet practice is just before the sun comes up. So basically while it's still dark.
Yeah.
And, if you're then teaching for other people to be able to at least get close to that and holding space for that early in the morning, then, sometimes you got to start even earlier. There were some very unhealthy stretches when I first started my solo teaching practice, i.e. being the only teacher at the program.
Yeah.
It was about 10 years ago. I'd be mimicking what was happening in India, where I was getting up at 3:30 in the morning to get ready to go to the space and do a 4:30 practice until about 6. And start teaching my first students who would arrive at 6, and that teaching would go till about 9. And then my day would be done.
Wow.
Pretty much, yeah.
Probably also very different. I'm trying to think where India is in relation to the equator versus Vancouver. Probably a little more light in India than here.
Well, I was in South India, Mysore.
Okay, yeah.
So it was very, very, not much, pretty much 12-hour day, 12-hour night, more or less.
So getting up at the ungodly hour of 4 a.m., 5 a.m. is I don't know. I think it just has a different feel probably there than it does here. Also with the dreary weather of Vancouver. So even when you're done at 9 a.m., if it's cloudy, rainy, and dark, it doesn't.
Yeah, winters were, it's like winters were harder for sure. And yeah, because you're just going from indoor space to indoor space. But at the same time, they help you go to bed earlier. If you're getting up at silly o'clock, you need to be going to bed at silly o'clock to make it anywhere near healthy. And by the way, I don't recommend this to anybody unless you have no other priorities in your life. So, yeah, there's pros and cons to each season. Like definitely summertime when you're living that when I was living that kind of schedule, it's easier. I think more sun exposure and light exposure sort of decreases the need for that extra sleep.
Mm-hmm.
It's just easier to have shorter sleeps and get up early and go to bed late. It's just what all of life is doing at that time of year. So it just kind of fits. But I would definitely find myself at times resenting the fact that I couldn't be outdoors at that time of the morning. It's like summertime is beautiful at 5:30, 6 a.m. But there I was just finishing practice and about to start work. But yeah, no regrets. No regrets. It's been a brilliant, brilliant journey.
What are a few lessons yoga's taught you that like are still with you to this day? I'm sure there's many, but see if you can pick a few.
Well, the ones that stand out right now, it's a classic lesson in yoga is do your best, effort, and let go. Be willing to surrender. And especially in recent years for me, being willing to surrender the amount of time and energy that I can put into the practice, and also on a kind of more egoic level, I developed a lot of physical capacity for complex yoga positions. Some would call extreme. I would call it extreme these days too.
Some pretzel twists of sorts?
Some pretzel twists and some silly sticking limbs behind necks and all that, all that kind of extreme stuff. And also, all the glory Instagram kind of stuff that you can do, hand balancing and all that kind of stuff. That takes time and effort to achieve and maintain. And it can definitely keep your ego in the practice while you're chasing that. And it becomes a kind of perverse part of the motivation to stay with it and to keep chasing. But age, lifestyle, children, being in service to others, that all, for most of us, I think, for most reasonable people, that all has to be let go of to a degree. And we have to learn to adapt. I've had to learn to adapt my practice and be more efficient with it and attempt to get the same juice squeezed out of a smaller lemon, so to speak.
Yeah. Knowing you've lived a life full of what I would describe as freedom and adventure. Those are the kind of two that really come to the forefront for me. Can you speak to freedom and adventure in your life and what that's meant to you? And obviously you're in a different phase of life now. But yeah, I'd love to even hear some stories of freedom and adventure for you.
Absolutely, yeah. First thing comes to mind, I was lucky enough when I was sort of 12 years old to be sent on the school ski trip.
Yeah.
And learned to ski for a week in France. And I went back and did that 3 more times over the next 5 years and was kind of enamored with it. Would love the annual ski holiday. Looked forward to it every year, a week in February usually. And on my penultimate trip, I think around when I was 15, 16, I was exposed to snowboarding. I was just like,
yes.
Wow. Give me some of that. We're talking like 1989, 1990 at this point. It's like snowboarding is just starting
coming out of the scene.
Just starting to emerge. Skiers are like, what is that? We're not letting you use our resorts and our lifts and all this kind of thing. And so I remember then being, okay, I want to try that. And of course, back then there was no internet to speak of. So I'm looking for magazines. I'm looking for any kind of materials that might expose me more to this and help me learn more about it so that my goal was to, okay, on the following trip, I'm going to talk to the ski teachers and other students and see if we can get like an afternoon of snowboard rental and see if we can play. And that happened. And I think it was either that trip or the previous one, I was also exposed to, so these trips always took place, they always went to France because we could pile 40 students into a double-decker coach and drive 24 hours to the resort. Which is crazy when you think about it, putting like 30 kids from 12 to 16 years old with a few teachers and parents.
Yeah, that would not happen today.
Onto a bus and a ferry and a overnight drive through France. But yeah, I met, or, in the hotels we stayed in, there would be English people, probably like 18, 19, 20, 21 years old, working in the hotel and then going skiing or snowboarding on their breaks or their days off. And I was watching that going, I want some of that. I want me some of that. And, I did decent at school. I was on something of a trajectory of, I liked, my strongest subjects were like English, history, those kind of things. And I was kind of on a vague trajectory of going and studying something like that at university. But that was also starting to drift during those years too. The goals were vague. There was no sense of where that was taking me other than that was a path ahead of me. I think I have an older brother. He was at university by then, and I think it was just expected in my mind from nowhere else externally that I would get on that path too. But I didn't particularly know why or where it would take me.
It sounds like that path didn't excite you as much as the alternative.
No,
yeah.
Not at all. Not at all, I guess. And so I already hatched a plan during those final 2 years of school, which are key to getting your university places, where I would defer my entry to whatever university place I got and at least go and do one season snowboarding in the Alps and work behind a bar or do whatever. And lo and behold, I did not do as well as was expected of me in my final exams. So I didn't even gain the points or the grades to secure the university places I had applied for. And while that was a little disappointing, it also it pushed me even more in the other direction. My parents, there was some pressure from my folks to reset the exams, try and get those grades back up and at least reestablish that safety net or whatever you might call it. And I was like, no, I'm done. I'm going to go get a job in a bar for the summer and get some relevant work experience. And then come November, I'm out of here. And during those aforementioned couple of trips with the school, we had English and Scottish guides that would take our groups around the resort skiing during the day. And I was asking them, if I want to go do a season, where should I go? And all the answers were like, go to Chamonix, Mont Blanc. I was like, okay. Just so happened that Chamonix, there was a couple of Chamonix sections in the 2 snowboarding VHS videos I'd managed to procure and would watch like 10 times a week. And I was like, okay.
That's where I'm going.
That's where we're going. Didn't have the slightest clue about the place. And roped in a buddy and to come along with me. And off we went. And that's where I met. It was a rough start, because we didn't know where we were going and what we were doing and like just how to show up and get established and set ourselves up. But yeah, so my buddy, he found it wasn't for him. He bailed after 4 weeks and I stuck it out. I had the cash in my pocket to stick with it and formed bonds and friendships with people who were a little more similar age, a little older, but a little more experienced in this whole doing a season in the mountains kind of thing. And lo and behold, that season was 5 guys living in a studio apartment in one of this kind of, in France, to kind of set the scene. A lot of the ski resorts there are sort of purpose-built destinations. Chamonix is not. It's down deep in a valley. But there are parts of it that have these kind of like holiday apartment complexes. We called it the ghetto. It was like, it's called Chamonix Sud, Chamonix South, but we called it Chamonix Skid because it was a little bit skid-like. But yeah, five dirtbags living in a studio for 5 months.
Sounds like a good time.
Trying to ski or snowboard on the hill as much as possible, like 100 days a year. And I knew within a month of doing that, back to the adventure part, I knew within a month of doing that, well, at the time I was like, this is me for the next 10 years. I don't need anything else for my life. I'm just this is the lifestyle I want. Yeah. And did that for another 3 seasons. And that took me to that 1996 period where the pattern shifted from, so I would do the season basically December to May, go home, live with my folks for the summer and work my ass off, save as much money as possible and leave again for the winter. So I did that 3 years in a row. And then during my 4th season, I was able to hook up with friends who are working for these exhibition companies down in the south of France. And so that hooked me up with more intense seasonal work, but really focused in the sort of spring and the fall. That would free up the winter and summer for travel. I mean, when I say travel, for me, it's not been about throwing on a backpack and going to 12 different destinations in 6 months. It's been like, okay, where is the action that I want happening at the highest level with the best conditions? I'm going there and I'm going to stay there for as long as I can. That's what going to Chamonix was about. That's what going to the west coast of France was about. You know, it was accessible. You could live out of your car pretty easy, easy to do, cheap. And then that's what going to India came to be about as well. You know, I could have studied what I studied with Western teachers and probably perhaps even gotten a more rounded sort of education. But the way I looked at going to Mysore, India at the time, and my growing passion for Ashtanga yoga, the system that I practice and teach, you know, Mysore city, where those teachers were, was like the Chamonix of the yoga that I wanted to do. So it's like, that's where it's happening. That's where it's like, that's, you know, the most intense place I can go and be. And also it's very affordable to go be there for 3 months at a time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's really consciously how I looked at it when I decided to go for the first time. It was like, where is this happening at the highest level? And where can I stay for the longest?
Cool. Yeah. Is that what brought you to Canada? Well, how did you end up here?
Ooh, yeah. That's a good question. Because it could have gone another way.
Yeah.
This might be a little roundabout, but I was after I lived in France for 3 years full time, and then 97 took my first trip to Bali with some surf buddies, came back, worked another stint, and then 98 moved to, I didn't know I was going to be moving there, but I went back to Bali for another trip, and that ended up becoming my home for 5 years. Like I barely left in 5 years, just to do visa runs to be able to keep staying there. Yeah. And during that time, about halfway through that time, I reconnected with a Canadian guy who I'd known from my first and my third seasons in France. And we'd both kind of been on the same trajectory of like kind of moving away from the mountains, more getting into surfing, and that had brought us both separately to Indonesia. And so we reconnected, and from that point on, after we'd traveled and done a few trips together, there was basically a standing invitation to come to Vancouver Island anytime I wanted to. And long story short, I took that up in September 2003 when I was at a bit of a loose end. And
never left.
Never really left. I did actually go back to France for a year and do another season because, visa stuff and wedding and opportunity. But when I first came here, or first got to the island, I was blown away. I mean, you know, taking a trip on BC ferries these days, maybe not that super exciting for those of us who've done it many, many times. But, you know, when first time here, basically straight from the airport to the ferry.
Wow.
And to, you know, going past Pender and the other islands where you're going through that channel and you can see houses up on the bluffs and down by the water. I'm like, wow, people actually live in those situations. This is cool. Mm-hmm. And the climate suited me a lot more too than the tropics, even though I adapted to that. And yeah, the initial plan was 3 months, check it out, see get some under the table work with some friends, and buy a thick wetsuit and do some cold water rainy surfing and take it from there. And I just decided to stay. I was like, I like it here. I could see my future here. This was what was turning in my mind. And I slowly kind of set about making that happen. And the yoga studio culture in Victoria was strong at the time, and that's where I was able to pick up the practice again strongly. And I thought, okay, how can I make this work? I'm an English guy. This is Canada. We're all Commonwealth. Can't be that hard to become a resident and a citizen, right?
Yeah.
A few years later, it actually happened, but it wasn't as simple as straightforward as that. But that's how it began. Took up an invitation.
How did you end up in a men's group?
So by 2016, I was lone wolfing it pretty hard in my life, at least in my immediate physical surroundings. I found myself in a situation where my best friends, who I'd done Babylon Yogashala with, had moved out of the city, and I had just sort of spent the previous 2 years traveling and teaching, doing some sort of contracts in Europe and Asia, and also different parts of Canada. And had just come back to there'd been a bunch of trips to India in that short period as well. So I was just coming back to the city to sort of reestablish myself in Vancouver, and for the first time start a solo teaching program. I'd always previously taught under, as an employee or
with others
or in partnership. And so I didn't have really any embodied relationships with men. I had lots of friends at a distance, but no one like in my immediate orbit. And I was in a on and off relationship at the time, which, I think we would both admit had a lot of dysfunctional patterns. And I was definitely leaning too much into that relationship for just my, general support and, the social side of life and such. Plus, I was also kind of like living that semi-monk mode lifestyle, trying to get my program off the ground and be that inspiration to my students, be that hardcore guy who's still practicing when they show up at what they think is early in the morning. And situationally, it came down to me having this feeling that I was isolated and that I needed to get out into the world and was looking for a vehicle to do that. And I was thinking more along the lines of work and business. It's like, who am I in the Vancouver yoga culture and scene, let's say. And it just so happened that an event popped up on my socials. It was going to be like a three-part live panel talks event. I was like, okay, I should go to this. I should go to this. I should go check this out. And really, take the pulse of what's going on and see where I fit into this scene, if at all. And it was a little out of my comfort zone because the timing and the scheduling of this event was like
bedtime,
basically. So I was like, oh, great. I'm going to be at this thing till 10 o'clock on a school night. 3 times in the course of 2 months. But I went, and it turns out that it was hosted by our friend Leo Chung. And I was very impressed with this guy, with how he was like hosting this event. It turns out we had met way back prior, but anyway, I wasn't aware of who he was at the time. But I was very impressed with how he was running this event, hosting it, and very effectively interviewing and facilitating these conversations between new and veteran yoga teachers in Vancouver. It was very cool. Very impressed by him. We ended up speaking just casually before the second talk outside. And it turns out he knew who I was. And I was like, how come? He's like, you're the Ashtanga guy in town. I'm like, oh, okay. I fit somewhere. Yeah. Okay. And so that was cool. Thought not much of it, but just seemed like, this seems like a cool guy. Third talk, towards the end of the night in one of the conversations, he mentioned, in my men's group, just a little ding went off in my mind. And I've been exposed to the concept of men's group a little bit before on my trips to India amongst some of the male students there, but like never pursued it, never thought anything of it. Thought it was a bit weird, to be honest. It's like, what are we going to do? I don't want to hang out with you guys for 2 hours. But the bell went off that time with Leo. And immediately after the talk ended, I went straight to him. I was like, tell me more about that men's group you mentioned. And he pointed me to the website. I read the 14-point code, read about Phil, and immediately sent him an email. And he got back to me right away. Or I think he had Chris Solacek get back to me right away.
Yeah.
And I was impressed by how this guy wrote an email. Just the tone was it was welcoming, but it was no bullshit. There was this sense of like, this is an important thing that you're moving towards. We're friendly, but this is not casual.
Yeah, some seriousness to it.
Yeah, and I was like, okay, cool, good. And a little bit like, what's this going to be? And so I had to test the waters a little bit because I was like, okay, you meet Mondays. This is your location. All right, I have this thing. I have a talk booked, an event that I'm booked in to go. I want to hold the ground and go to that. It's important to me to go. Probably best that I start after that. He's like, okay, trust you. Let's do that. And so that ended up being December 2016. I joined the Wolf Squad.
Do you remember what it felt like in your first few meetings, first few months?
Yeah, it felt to me like, this is exactly what I didn't know I was looking for. This is worth sacrificing sleep on a Monday night for. Because it was like, we used to meet 7 till 10 at that point, and I would get up 4 o'clock the next morning. It was brutal. Another thing that hit me really early on, even probably, within an hour of the first meeting, was being impressed by guys' willingness to just open up and lean into each other. Mm-hmm. And multiple things. The spread, Wolf Squad at the time had a really good spread of age. I would have been 42 at the time. And we had guys in there from like 22 to like 45. And spread pretty evenly. Maybe a little front loaded towards the kind of 30 guys in their 30s, but and there was so much common ground that so much to say, where to start.
Well, you said you didn't know you needed it. What did you need? At that time, at least, that you were getting there.
I can say now, I would put it like this. I needed to know that I wasn't alone in the kind of man that I was. Mm-hmm. And that also I wasn't special. One thing I'm a little reluctant to fess up to, I guess, but maybe a lot of guys will relate to this, is like I lost a lot of my self, time, and energy, let's say, in the conspiracy theory realm. Mm-hmm. Like in the world of like the alternative view on world affairs and the news. Yeah. And so to find myself sitting in a group of guys who many of them would like acknowledge that perspective on the world as somewhat valid and real, and yet still get on with their lives in the way they needed to get on with their lives.
Yeah.
like really just kind of dropped something into place for me of like, oh, that's, part of my ego was like, oh, I know this about how the world works. And that makes me special. I have some special knowledge. And therefore it's like I live my life this way according to that knowledge.
Would you now say that that belief was getting somehow in the way of living your life?
Oh yeah, to a degree. Yeah. Maybe to more of a degree that I could know or admit.
What aspect would you say was like?
Money and power is dangerous.
Yeah.
Yeah, money and power is dangerous and distasteful and corrupting and yeah.
Which there's some truth to.
Indeed. But like I really took that truth and ran with it. And, combined that with the conditioning I got from 10 years of influence of very traditional teachers from yoga who are saying, you do not do this as a business. You run a humble little school. You do not advertise. You just, you do your little thing and live your life. So I definitely think I had there was probably an egotistical holier than thou program running there. Look at me, I'm a pure yoga teacher doing service for the world, and I don't touch that distasteful money stuff. Whilst also being like, God damn it, why don't I have any money? I want a new motorbike.
Okay, so it's like confronting in your face, like, okay, these men can acknowledge and kind of I can relate to these men also with some of these beliefs I have, but what shifted, I guess, in particular in that relationship to money and power in that group, in you?
Gosh, well, I mean, it's still a tension. Mm-hmm. It's still, that program is quite deeply embedded, I think. And there's some stuff there that goes even further back, I think, to money programming from my family of origin and growing up. But can you say that question again?
What does money and power mean to you now versus then?
I mean, I can roll off a pat answer about money. It's an enabling resource. It's energy, and it can be put to good use or bad use. I can understand that if I have a bad attitude towards it, it's not going to come near me. I'm just going to keep repelling it, and that that's an ongoing work for me. Mm-hmm. Is to watch those stories come up and try to shift them all the time. Those stories of like, maybe not being good enough based on the evidence of my life so far to receive adequate, even though there's a tension between two competing programs in me, which is like, I know very deep down, I'll always have everything I need. Mm-hmm. And yet there's this, tension there with fear of scarcity. Mm-hmm. And like, yeah, but what if you don't? Well, look at the math now. What if, what if this happens and that happens? How long have you got, Yeah,
it's like separating the wholeness of the self and operating in a society that kind of requires money to live and eat and do things, mm-hmm. and marrying those two together. And your responsibility now that you're a father as well. You're not just a lone wolf slinging it, where you literally probably could survive in the sense like I have everything I need in myself. I don't need money. I don't need this. In mm-hmm. some sense, in that before you have a kid, you can say fuck it to everything.
Pretty much.
If you want to.
Yeah.
Things change when you become a father.
Oh, absolutely. Well, things changed for me even before that because I used to kind of take pride in my minimalism and mm-hmm. this like, my selfishness in a way. Like I'm going to look after myself first and pursue all the things I want to do. And if anyone wants to come along, sure. I mean, I think that's, I think any motorcycle owner might relate to that. It's like there's only room for you and one other, and many of those things only come with even one seat. So the passenger seat is not very comfortable in the most part. But I thankfully sort of woke up a little bit before I met my partner to, okay, Geoff, if you continue down this wonderful bachelorhood trajectory, life ain't going to look too much different 20 years from now.
And is that what you want?
Is that what I want? You're basically going to be old and lonely and probably trying to chase inappropriately young women who even then will be the age I am now, you know?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I basically made a decision right there and then to myself, yeah, I don't want that. It's time to find someone to do life with. And if that involves children as well, let's go for it. Sure, why not?
How has being in relationship challenged you?
Oh, how long we got?
Pick one.
Oof. Well, we were talking about this before we started. One huge challenge in, the pressure cooker of early parenting is being exposed to all my childhood conditioning and patterning that, and sort of wounding, I suppose, that I haven't integrated and resolved. I'm like, there's mother wounds that I have that are unhealed in that.
How does that come up for you?
Hypersensitive to anything that may be perceived as criticism.
I think a lot of men can relate. I certainly can.
Yeah. Or even being told what to do. Even in moments where it's very clear of like, yes, that's exactly what needs to happen. Yeah. But the fact that a woman's telling me to do it.
What's the childhood feeling behind all that maybe you have now the insight and awareness to look at? Someone telling you what to do.
Someone telling me what to do. Well, my autonomy's being taken away from me. There's an implication that I'm not trusted to know what to do.
I'm wrong or something.
Am I ever wrong? I'm wrong, and I'm wrong, or I'm in trouble. That's kind of more towards the let's see, that the I'm in trouble piece goes more towards how to put this, struggling to hold space for the emotions of my partner and making them about me. That sort of comes from tiptoeing around an angry, critical mother as a boy and wanting to hide and be quiet and take myself out of the field of view so that I don't become a target for unpredictable unpredictable outbursts. And yeah, as a result of that, a deep programming of feeling like if something is going wrong, it's my fault. I did something wrong or I failed to do something. And that kind of feeds into the whole, oh shit, I'm in trouble.
In some senses, it's hilarious as a 51, right?
52 yesterday.
52. Oh yeah, happy birthday. Forgot to mention. As a 52-year-old man that, I obviously can relate, but you're sitting there with your partner and you have this shit come up. It's hilarious in some sense. You're like, wow.
Yeah. If only I could laugh at it in the moment.
Yeah. Well, there are lots of people who one can't see or haven't done some level of introspection to kind of tie the two together, and they're just living in their experience of like discomfort of being told what to do and maybe having emotions, anger, frustration come up. Even still having these come up now, how do you work with them, or how do you shift? Because it's obviously not helpful to go to that state and essentially act like a child in that moment and maybe react to your partner or say something you regret or shut down or whatever your patterns are. How do you change and shift that? Because it will still happen, but you have some level of separation from it, I'm guessing.
Yes. And obviously, the quicker I can notice that separation happening, the better. The longer it goes on, the more that temporary resentment builds. Yeah, but really what it comes down to is having enough wherewithal to observe that it's happening. It's like, oh, I am severely activated right now, whether I'm feeling angry, whether I'm feeling want to stonewall and withdraw and feeling like sad and unseen or whatever it is. Angry at my partner. It's, having that opportunity or creating that opportunity to zoom out, take a breath or many breaths, go walk around the block, and come back to a space of being willing to repair and come back to the bigger picture of like, we are in this together. Neither of us are going anywhere. We signed up for this. Our little one needs us. And what can we learn? I'm sorry. That's not me. That's part of me that's acting up. Yeah.
What's the hardest part of being a father thus far? I'm asking this somewhat selfishly as I'm going to be a father in July. So any wisdom I can get from you, I'll take.
Honestly, the hardest bit for me right now is working long days and only having a couple hours with my baby a day. FaceTime and, cuddle time, playtime. That's the toughest thing. So as much paternity leave as you can get as possible, take it, and then take more if you can.
Yeah.
I got 6 weeks off of everything when Beatrice was born, and that was a massive gift. That and watching my partner have to shoulder so much by herself is hard. And wishing more support for her, wishing more support for us in general. Neither of us have any effective extended family or even immediate family around us. Mine are back in the UK. Hillary's family was always small. It's just her and her grandmother. Not being able to support her even more.
Yeah.
Let's say. And also, back to the money piece of like always having that little bit of background worry of like, is this enough? Where can I find more?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hard work. Stressful. It's like there's not enough time. There's not enough. It's
But then, you see this little being in front of you and all that just melts away. Just disappears. Doesn't even exist. Yeah. It's you just have them, the love, the bond, the connection, their whole life and their potential just right in front of you in your imagination. And that just helps all the other stuff melt away. Yeah, there's forces of nature at play that are just carrying us along in that sense, really.
When you become a parent, oftentimes in the mind, there's usually two ways. It's like, oh, there's things that you loved in the ways in which your parents raised you. Like, oh, I want to copy that. And then there's ways in which you're like, oh, I want to do something completely different. What are the things that you loved that you want to impart to your child or do, and what are the things that you're excited to do very differently?
Great question. What I want to do is, my folks put us in the pool in sports and activities. Nothing crazy, no more than one at a time. But we were doing stuff embodied very early on.
Go out, do stuff, sports, activities.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think started with swimming and, started with swimming and then it was trampolining, then it was judo, then it was swimming again, and swimming was full on for years. I took that almost as far as you can go as a 12-year-old. And then, always like team sports and individual sports. Even swimming was team sport because it was club.
So you want to put Beatrice in everything. Okay, why?
Not everything,
okay.
But, whatever she has an affinity to. I want her to be a physically capable being who enjoys being in her body and exploring the capabilities and limits of her body.
Mm.
Yeah. And I think the socializing that comes with team sports or even individual sports that you do with other individuals is really helpful because it exposes you to other kids, obviously, exposes you to other adults too, parents of other kids that you'd interact with in a different way as coaches or even just, friends who are carpooling and that kind of thing. All that stuff was, I think it has more positive benefits than we realize. Just all those different interactions, that socializing has a really positive benefit.
So how about the piece that maybe you didn't get or that you want to do differently?
God bless my parents. I love them. And, as we all know and can appreciate, our parents did what they could. But they very much prescribed and probably were exposed to as kids that kind of tall poppy syndrome of like, don't stand out. And, basically kind of reel your neck in, keep a lid on it. Let me put it in a more positive spin. I will celebrate my daughter overtly and, congratulate her and affirm her overtly versus, oh yeah, that was good. What about this, that, and the other, Yeah, well done. You excel at that, but watch yourself there,
Sounds so British, I hate to say it.
Yeah. A lot of kind of like not good enough undertones, but also, and I could tell, it was somewhat protective because, my mom would allude to this kind of idea of like, you better be careful, lad. The world is going to cut you down if you go out there like that. Probably part of me did anyway, go out there like that. But I want to avoid that. I want to be a lot more overtly supportive and affirmative.
Beautiful. I love that. It's a good answer. What was one of the hardest moments in your life?
Gosh. An immediate one would actually be the birth of my daughter. There were times during that night that she was coming into the world where, despite being well prepared, despite having all the facts in front of me and delivered to me on the spot, to where I should have known, or I felt that I should have known more about where we were in the process. And I was trusting we were in a good place in the process. But, no, there was part of me there was no sense of unsafety. Everything was going as a natural birth does at home. But there was part of me that was not confident that I knew where things were at and that I wasn't playing my part effectively enough. So it was like, it was a really tough couple of hours of self-doubt where part of me was like reverting back to like, oh, I don't know. I don't want to ask. If I ask or speak up, I'm going to get smashed. And because it was such an intense, situation, unfortunately I had that. It was hard to really have that running in the background whilst I was on the surface, supporting and there and present and aware of what was going on. That was tough.
To describe that as one of the hardest parts of your life, the depth and intensity of that feeling must have been really strong.
Yeah. Even though, like I said, I didn't feel unsafe in a broader sense. Internally, there was a lot churning, and it was hard to just kind of keep a lid on.
Wow.
Despite all the preparation, despite what my eyes were telling me and what my ears had already told me, that part of me that was doubting that I didn't know what was going on, in fact, didn't know where we were in the process, even though I did.
Was it a lack of control that was scary, or was it the fear of something going wrong? What was the piece? Or not good enough, or doing things?
It was not good enough. Not wanting to expose that I was having doubts about what I was.
Am I supporting her right? Am I?
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Am I doing it right?
Wow.
Yeah, you could just sum it up in that, actually. Am I doing it right at this biggest moment of all of our lives?
Wow.
Yeah. And annoyingly, that just kind of shows me how my mind works. I don't know if it's my astrology or whatever, but it's like so often I'll make any intense situation about me.
I mean, that is the human
version.
In some sense, that's part of human nature, is right. It's like you are stuck in your own condition, and so everything is filtered through your own experience, your own mind.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's just like the natural way where you tend to make it about yourself in every moment. Everyone does this to a degree.
Mm-hmm.
So coming out the other side of that ultra intense internal feeling, do you feel like that actually was there a shift there around that feeling, or not really? Was it just ultra intense because of the seriousness of that moment in your life? Obviously, having your firstborn child brings that level of intensity.
Yeah, I would say probably the moment was a big contributing factor. And, there was always that underlying trust the process program running in the background that I could lean into. Afterwards, I mean, there's probably a reason it came up as the first memory of like, not trusting the mind or how deceptive our minds can be. Still work in progress.
What makes you emotional? What brings up emotion for you? I sense, much like me, you tend to be a very calm affect type of man, very stable, very solid, very grounded, not often, kind of like the polar opposite of like the classic feminine archetype, like wild, chaotic, emotional, in a beautiful sense. You're steady. So what does stir the emotional pot in you?
God. I can, these days, sometimes it doesn't take much if I'm by myself and I expose myself to certain content or whatnot to get the tears flowing. Like, especially now I'm getting flowed a lot of parenting stuff on the socials, and you read some really, really thoughtful posts about the journey of parenting and where it takes you. And like, I'll be, quietly sobbing reading the second slide, and then keep going through watery eyes. But even just, watching, if I'm, watching a movie or watching a documentary or a series, and maybe I'll put it this way, maybe my mirror neurons are well polished, because if I see someone being emotional, I will immediately join them. in a quiet, sitting on the couch, don't look at dad because he's got tears in his eyes kind of way. Which I love. Like,
it's a big empath in you.
Yeah, I lean into it. Not afraid of that by any means. But then on the flip side, kind of back to that, the intense container of parenting and how it's triggering very old, deep wounds. I've noticed a lot of anger flare up really, really quickly. And just the smallest things can set me off, just like a stuck drawer in the kitchen or, just silly stuff like that. And all of a sudden I'm like at an 8 out of 10 under my breath rage. You know?
Yeah. Slam the door closed.
Yeah. I'm like, hold on, who is this? So yeah, that's there. That's ready to be exposed and worked on.
In all your years in men's groups, which is now a decade,
pretty much coming up, yeah.
What do you feel like you've gained from sitting in circle with men? I know there's countless things, but if you can pick a few moments in particular, if you can give those moments a story or an experience you had sitting in the chair that you can even remember right now, what were some of those? Like ahas, turning points.
One of the sort of general theme I was noticing very early on was like having blind spots exposed. Like going into a share and then having guys reflect back to me what they're hearing and pointing out what I'm not seeing in the situation. And even not seeing what a part of my lens is on the world that's, making me operate in a way that I don't even see. A more focused version of that would be sitting in a hot seat and having men that I like, love, and respect reflect back to me the stuff that I know about myself that I might think is hidden, but is,
out there for everyone to see.
Out there for everyone. You said it. And that, that combination of feeling exposed and yet at the same time relieved because, okay, I'm not hiding this. There's no need to hide it. And in fact, it's better it's not hidden so it can be exposed and transformed. Having men who are willing to do that for me is priceless. And, seeing that it's actually quite a challenge for men to do that, and that being able to facilitate a space for men to start leaning into that is also priceless for me, and like really sort of strengthens the act of service that I consider what being a captain is. Just fairly recently in our squad, we did a hot seat process that for the first couple of weeks that we ran it, every time that we did start, it wasn't the guy in the hot seat who was having to take the deep breath and prepare himself. It was the other 8 guys on the gallery going, okay,
do I have what it takes to tell the truth to this guy?
Yeah.
Do I have the courage?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's brilliant to be a part of. Yeah, to have that honest reflection given to me and to be able to teach guys how to give that or show guys how to give that. Yeah. What was the question again?
No, you answered it. That was one moment sitting in circle that was really powerful that shifted things for you. Can you think of another?
Yeah, one comes to mind. In the second squad that I found myself in, co-captain, we had one mutual friend just after he joined lean into a share about, basically losing his marriage and how that had precipitated him ending up in the men's group in a roundabout way. And just seeing him really allow himself to let go of all the emotions he was feeling around it, mostly the sadness and the regret he was feeling about his behavior, and letting himself be seen in that, in a space where he was still relatively new and, not known that well just yet. That willingness to do that and what he received and was able to let go of in doing that was super powerful. That, and in general, one more thing I'd like to add, and this is kind of like multiple events composite.
Yeah.
As may have been mentioned here on the podcast already, one of the things we do early on for members joining the circle is have them give a father share.
Yeah.
Tell us all about their relationship with their father, or their relationship to perhaps not having a father, and any male father figures they've grown up with in their lives, and watching multiple men go through the process of, entering that process, being in a state of, I don't really know what there is to share here about my dad. I've never really thought about my relationship to my dad. To 20 minutes later, tears running down their street, running down their face, digesting new realizations about themselves and their dad, and what it means to be a man, and how we might end up as men in this world still feeling like boys, because of the fathering we received or didn't receive. To be a party to that and to be able to facilitate that, something that appears on the surface so simple. Tell us about your dad. Who is he? Where's he from? What was his life like growing up? Really unlocks many, many things. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember when I joined, a lot of people join after they have like a big moment, whether it's like a relationship ending, a relationship not going well, some big pivotal moment. Ironically, when I chose to join, I didn't have that moment come up. The night before my first meeting, it just happened. It was almost like serendipitous. It's like, I found myself in my first meeting the day after a 5-year-long relationship ended. A few years, yeah. And so I was a bit of a mess, and found myself kind of in that place. One, really glad that I was there, but it's like I didn't know why I had chosen to be there, and I was just in the chair, in the right place, in the right moment. And it really helped me, I guess, just kind of like unload.
Yeah.
It allowed me to just be, instead of being with that feeling alone.
And all the stories you can spin about it by yourself.
Exactly. Which helped. It just helped immeasurably. You've recently become, well, not recently, you've been a leader for a long time. You've recently started a new group. How's that impacted you, going from being a man sitting in a chair and just experiencing, to now being responsible for every man's experience and holding that?
Yeah. More recently, it's occurred to me that I miss that being a squad member more than I realize. There's a time when, I don't know about you, but when I first joined a squad or a circle, there would be a little bit of nerves on a Monday night before the meeting, because you didn't know what was going to get exposed about yourself, or what edge I was going to come up against, even just by being in the meeting and sharing, or like, responding to someone's share. But yeah, let me say this. being in a squad, a group, gave me so much that just like with yoga, it was a no-brainer for me to put myself forward to make this more available to more people.
Yeah.
That motivated me to, leave my first squad to co-start my second one. And now I have this, after 5 years of that, I was like, I want to know what it's like. Kind of like with the yoga. I want to know what it's like to be able to do this, start it, and carry it as a solo captain. And even complete the cycle to where I can grow someone up and hand it off to them. That's in the goals. It has been, it's been great. I've loved it, and I continue to love it. I love how it's evolved to where, in those early weeks and months, there's this feeling of being a little bit more in kind of teacher-facilitator mode. And then once the kind of structure gets established, I can sit back a little bit more. I have a solid lieutenant who's brilliant at helping me keep the meeting on track and to call guys forward. And I feel like I get to sort of sit back a little. On the one hand, sit back and try to bring the presence of my mentors and the early captains I experienced, and Phil and the folks higher up the chain that I learned from. But also because the squad's established and we all know each other very well, I do lean in more to sharing with my squad. I'm not one of these captains who never shares. I share often. And I hot seat myself. Well, I don't do it myself, but that process I was referring to earlier, I was like, I'm going to go last, guys. I'm going to let you guys get all warmed up and really in a groove with this. And
then you got to unleash.
Yeah, then I will sit. And it really did, it took me back to those early days in my first squad where I would get that hot seat and those reflections and have my blind spots pointed out and feel that heat, but also the warmth of the love that the men are supplying. I'm really happy to now with our squad, in the sense that, in Brotherhood, we call our groups the squads. We, thanks to the enrollment process, we have a really good spread of guys in our squad now. I think the youngest is late 20s, oldest is mid 50s. And it's a solid even spread now through that. Like the guy who just joined us, he's a grandfather. He's just a few years older than me. So it's good to not feel like the oldest guy. I still find it, going back to that point about being in a man's body, but still all too often feeling like a boy, to be looked upon as, I feel like even Phil once referred to me as moving towards the elders in this community. I'm like, well, I really don't feel that way at all. And, to have guys in squad to kind of look up to me like that it's interesting, because I'm like, guys, I'm no different than you. I've just got a bunch more years on this path than you. I know the structures. I know how to hold the room and keep things rolling and maintain the core disciplines. And that's it. But I'm sitting here right next to you, not at the end of the table, not on a pedestal.
I think that's a large part of what makes our groups work. So then I guess the next question I'd ask you is, why do you think the container of a men's group does something different? Why is it special in some way versus just having men hanging out? Not that they can't have these conversations or they can't get stuff of depth and meaning with other men without a men's group, but there is something magical and special that happens. What creates that in your mind? Like, why does that exist?
Well, as Doug MacKenzie wrote and points out, those three core disciplines, having a strong container bolstered by basically our attendance protocols, and consistent commitment of the weekly meetings enables and facilitates the truth telling and the truth listening to happen. So just that, the simple structure, but that is held very, very firmly, is what allows it. It's what is able to contain the kind of the storms and the tsunamis, the lightning and the thunder and the the fire and the crashing waves to happen.
In some sense, though, I'm still left with like, well, why is that the case? Because I mean, I look at perhaps maybe women in a different light, and they seem a lot more able to access emotion, access, I don't know, that in their relationships a lot easier than men.
Mm-hmm.
There are women's groups, and I'm sure they're wonderful and they serve a purpose, but women don't seem to need or benefit as much from, I think men can really benefit, at least in my experience, from having that structure. Like, of course, before I joined men's groups, I had a lot of close male friends, and there was some real depth to them, but there was still nothing like what I got out of sitting in a men's circle.
Mm-hmm. A couple of things come to mind. Yeah, I was going to say something about the structure there, but it's gone. So I'll say the other thing. Finding it, like I said about the spread of our group, and this was true for me from when I first joined a squad. I'm sitting in an intentional space with men who otherwise in my life I would not encounter. Like, I'm not going to get the perspective of that 29-year-old and that 56-year-old and whatever the spread is in between.
The unlikely cast of characters.
Exactly. Sure, there's going to be a lot of common ground, but at the same time, there's going to be a massive variance in life experience. Yeah, and that could be in terms of relationships, like, work, career, finances, all kinds of different life situations. And being exposed to that spread is to me a big part of what I think is needed in society and what we're trying to create with the Brotherhood, is that sort of recreation of the village container. Because in village, like, that tight 120 size tribal village, we would be sitting with not only our friends and our siblings, but it would be with our fathers, our grandparents, our uncles, our great uncles, and
the village idiot, and the guy you don't like, and
yes, exactly. Yeah, it's not just your buddies. It's sitting in circle with guys, like you say, you don't like, who you're gonna definitely resonate more with some guys than others. Some guys are really gonna piss you off, get on your nerves on a regular basis, and that's life. You gotta find a way to live with that, and also, not hide from that, not pretend it's not happening.
Yeah,
and just own it so you can deal with it. Yeah.
If you were to give some advice to men who are struggling, what would it be?
Ooh. Apart from join a men's group?
Yeah.
Yeah. Join a men's group. Find a way to kind of like first 3 points of the code or whatever they are. Like, I can't reel them off, sorry. But get into your body. Get into your breath. Let those bring you into your mind so that you can see what your mind is doing, so that you can experience that you're not your mind.
Get some separation.
Yeah, get some separation. Get some distance between yourself and your thoughts, so that you can see them for what they are, and that they're a program running, but on a computer that you control, if you choose to. And then learn to be in integrity with yourself by taking teeny tiny, very achievable, what might seem absurdly small steps in the direction that you want to go.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beyond being a father, even because I know that's most of your world right now, what excites you most in life right now?
Ooh. As of right now, starting next month, getting my mornings back to myself. I've actually just stepped away from my yoga program at the end of this month for an indefinite period. I'm walking away for the time being so I can give my energy back, basically fill my own cup and get back to myself and my family every single morning instead of getting up and out the house to hold space for other people every day. That excites me. And it also, it excites me because it's a little scary, because now I have to go out and learn who I am at 52, essentially, probably temporarily, but for a long period of time, letting go of a huge identity that I've held for the last 20 plus years.
Yeah, getting up and holding space for others in their practice.
Yeah. Ashtanga yoga teacher. That's been me in all that time. And to not be that, I'm excited and slightly scared of what my true discipline really looks like. Can I do that if it's not, if there's not this external accountability? Like, basically, can I look after myself, practice effectively, fill my own cup effectively so I can give my best to my family every day? Can I do that basically when no one's watching or no one's paying me to be that?
What's that morning going to look like? Is it going to be very similar, just without other people, or?
Not too similar. It's going to, I envisage, because as you know, the yoga system I worked with has a reputation for being very strict and very structured. And I've done my best over the years to soften that and make it a lot more accessible to people and not be dogmatic. I expect my mornings and practices to be even less dogmatic and just kind of take the best bits from the things that I love, which are, basic yoga practice, short and sweet, combined with kettlebells and Wim Hof.
Yeah. Sounds great.
Yeah. And cuddles with my family. Yeah.
Do you have any final words or things you'd like to say to our audience or anyone listening?
Breathe. Just keep in connection with your breathing. That's what brings you home every time. That's all we've got. When life gets tough and triggers get pulled and nervous systems get activated and we get kicked off center, that's the one true thing we have to anchor back into that's available to us all the time.
Thank you, Geoff Peter MacKenzie.
Jeffrey Peter MacKenzie.
Jeffrey.
Yeah.
I enjoyed our conversation.
Likewise, Matt. Thanks for having me.
You bet.
Being a pleasure.
3, 2, 1.
Ho!